Who are you? And why are you here? Are you just the product of some big bang? Did you evolve from cosmic goop? Or are you a person of unimaginable significance? You'll find out next on the abortion controversy. Welcome to part 4 of a special 13-part series called The Abortion Controversy. Today's segment is called Created with Significance. My guests are two fabulous ladies, Antionette and Dianne Wagner, who have teamed up together in a special ministry called Mafgia. And they are doing a lot of good. They're helping a lot of people. In the first two programs, I interviewed them, and Dianne told an amazing story of how many years ago she had 2 abortions, and it just about ruined her life. But she finally discovered the love and the grace and the goodness and the mercy of God, and it has changed her completely. And Antionette has told her story, quite a bit different, but she was almost aborted as a baby, but her mother changed her mind. And so she's here today as well. And today we're going to go deeper and look like a submarine going down under the water at the issue of who we are and our significance. So, ladies, thank you again for being here. It's just great to have you here. I'm a learner, and so I'm here to listen. So where do you want to start with created for significance?
When we're talking about abortion and human value, some tend to focus on the value of the unborn and the rightness and wrongness of abortion. And some tend to focus on the crisis of the woman who is in crisis and her circumstances. For us, the issue isn't just about the unborn and the rightness and wrongness, and it's not just about the crisis of circumstance. This issue is really about restoring value. We've forgotten what it means to be made in the image of the Lord.
I wanted to share a couple texts with you, if I could.
Of course.
In Genesis,
I've got my Bible here too, so.
It's Genesis 1:27, that God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them. And then down in Ephesians, it shows his workmanship, which I love, Ephesians 2:10.
I've been thinking about that verse recently.
It's an awesome text. Verse. It is. We are God's workmanship, created in Jesus Christ to do good works, which God prepared for us in advance. You know, that's just such a beautiful thought. And I have one other quote I wanted to share that a very special author that I like a lot has said. And it's, men are so intent on excluding God from the sovereignty of the universe that they degrade man and defraud him of the dignity of his origin. Mm-hmm. When the Lord came down to crown his glorious work, he did not fail to create a being worthy of the hand that gave him life. I believe that mankind has lost our self-worth because we've lost sight of who gave it to us.
Right, our Creator. Well, of course, the whole evolution, creation controversy, I mean, a lot of people think that we just, somehow there was a bang, and as millions of years went by, somebody said, well, how did the cells know to go female and male? Mm-hmm. I mean, that's a mysterious question from an evolutionary perspective, but of course we don't believe in evolution, we believe in creation. And we're Christians, we believe in the book, the Bible, and so this is a good place to start with.
Absolutely.
The foundations. Where did we come from?
Exactly.
Who are we?
Exactly.
What does the book say?
Well, and so we see that it was established at creation. And then when the Lord came to die to set his people free, it was affirmed forevermore. God literally gave his own life to buy us back. And you know, a text that everyone is so familiar with, John 3:16, for God so loved the world that he literally gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believes in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. So that means the infinite God became finite, and the boundless God became bound. Is it possible that we've heard it so often that we've completely forgotten the significance of it. In Isaiah 50, 6-7, it says, I gave my back to those who struck me, and my cheeks to those who plucked out the beard. I did not hide my face from shame and spitting, for the Lord God will help me. Therefore I will not be disgraced. Therefore I have set my face like a flint. And in Hebrews 12:2, we're told, for the joy that was set before him, he endured the cross, despising the shame. He literally suffered incredible humiliation for us, and it was literally for the joy for us in our reconciliation to him that he endured the cross and he despised the shame. So why is it necessary to go through that, to emphasize our value at creation and the value that was affirmed at the cross? Because through these acts, through creation, through the cross, the Lord literally established himself as the unshakable standard that defines our worth. We possess intrinsic value. And I love the way, Dianne, that you define this, intrinsic value.
Oh, we were talking about this. I had never looked at the word intrinsic value before until I heard Antionette talk about it. And this is the way I summed it up. It was not something we've earned. It was not something that we have achieved in life. And it's not something that we prove. You know, so many times people desperately try to prove their worth, which is the case in a lot of post-abortive women. Mm-hmm. You know, they, because of the shame, they try to prove themselves. And that can create that vicious cycle of this sadness that they exist under. And it's only when we realize that this value, this intrinsic value, is something that was placed on us. And that just made such a huge impact on my life. I'm convinced a lot of people, whether, you know, they're pregnant in a bad situation, a lot of their decision making is based on their self-value. You know, I know you've heard stories where people have had a pregnancy but had aborted it because they didn't want anybody to know. Or parents have ushered their kids into abortion clinics because they didn't want anybody to know. And so much of it has to do with status or worth or what people will think.
People are embarrassed.
Yes, and
we want to be scorned or frowned upon.
Unfortunately, exactly. We place our value on what another man thinks or what he will think or she will think if they find this out about me, which is so very sad because it impacts every area, you know, of our life.
So you said this, that when you discovered in your intrinsic value that it really made a difference to you.
Oh, absolutely. And you know, that was the beforehand, the impact of not knowing our intrinsic value.
And did you discover that just by reading the Bible? Did you get it from, did you talk to Antionette? What happened that caused the lights to go on and you just went, wow, God, you made me and I'm valuable to you? I'm one who really believes in spending time with the Lord every day, you know, and getting acquainted with the Lord. But I had never really thought of the intrinsic value issue until I heard her talking about it once at a seminar. And it just opened, it was my paradigm shift. There was a paradigm shift. And it was like, it's nothing my experience being post-abortive, I tried to prove myself. You know, I tried to earn people's respect or earn my self-respect. I was just grasping for that. But when I heard Antionette talk about it and I started really contemplating it and praying about it, and the more I embraced that thought, it broke my heart because It made me realize just how important we are. It makes an impact on how we look at each other, and it makes an impact on how we look at the unborn, you know. Every creation, you know, and the special blessing of being in the image of God, you know, all of a sudden it just takes on a whole new meaning. It really made a huge impact on me. Wow. Antionette, I'm assuming that there was a moment or a time in the past where that revelation dawned on you as well? Can you fill us in a little bit about that?
I think it's happened over time. It's happened in being in relationship with the Lord, and especially coming to, as certainly I've sought to understand His heart on this issue, that we bear intrinsic value and eternal significance and that it's a value and a significance that no one and nothing can destroy. And our value isn't based on what we do or achieve or possess. It's based solely on the fact that we're made in the image of the Lord. And in seeking his heart on it, really, this is what is true of us. It's borne out in Scripture. In Romans 11:29, for instance, it says that the calling and election of the Lord are irrevocable. That's phenomenal, because for every single person who's ever been born, ever to walk the face of the earth, the calling and election of the Lord on their lives, it's irrevocable. He's never going to take it back. That means we were born with purpose. We were created with destiny. And it's a purpose and a destiny that we alone can fill. That is how valuable we are. It's absolutely mind-boggling if we will allow the truth of that to sink in and will dare to believe that it's really true.
So when it comes to the whole abortion issue, like you mentioned, whether it's right or wrong, and the crisis that a woman goes through, and then the post-abortion trauma and all of that struggle. I mean, all of these things are very real issues that we'll continue to explore. But you see the value issue as an underlying issue that affects all the other issues. Is that right?
Absolutely. The Lord truly is, as He said in His Word, "You are made in my image, thus you are valuable." He really is the unshakable standard that defines our worth. And He invites us to build our lives, to interact with the world on the foundation of who He has said that we are. It's He really is the standard that cannot be shaken. And that's a very humbling concept, because we are used to, as Dianne mentioned, as I certainly have experienced in my own life, grasping and striving to prove our value, our significance, our worth. It's very humbling to say, I'm valuable solely because I'm made in the image of the Lord, and that's it. I don't bring anything to the table that makes me more valuable, ultimately. Not at conception, not at birth, not in the middle of life, not at the end of life. The Lord is truly the only one that defines my value. It is humbling for us as people.
So it's not based on my job.
No.
It's not based on how good I am.
Right.
It's not based on even on how bad I've been.
Absolutely not.
It's based on who God is,
Yes.
and who He made me to be.
Yes.
And even though I mess up, and we certainly do need His forgiveness, there's still the underlying sense that God sees me as important enough to spend time with me, and He loves me, and in spite of the fact that I've messed up, we have hope, right?
Yes.
It's a hope issue and a purpose issue, and of course I want to ask you in a little bit, well, the significance, what is that for? What's the goal? What's the purpose? But anyway, you look like you're about to say something.
With what you were saying, it made me, and I have talked to Antionette about this, when you realize that it's you can rest. It really, me personally, it was like I experienced it's like a silence where you really could sit back and rest, because it's what's been given you, this treasure, this jewel, pearl greater than, without a price on it. And when we realize that, then we're able to rest. And then when we stand up, we're doing it for the glory of the Lord,
Yes.
not for some trying to gain, like we talked about, our worth, or
Yes.
impress somebody, or try to prove that, yes, I am worthy, And so to me, it just was life-changing, because the sweet rest, the Lord tells us to be still. We're always clamoring and racing and trying to achieve.
busy.
Yes.
Especially today, especially with
Yes.
cell phones and texting
Exactly,
and Twitter
exactly.
and internet and emails. I mean, I have to sometimes, I just came back from a vacation with my wife and my kids, and I had to resolutely not bring my laptop,
Yes.
which my wife was thrilled. I actually went through security on the way to our vacation at an airport, and I reached into my laptop, or into my satchel, to grab my laptop out, and it wasn't there. And I had this panic. Oh no, I've lost my laptop, or where is it? And then I realized, wait a minute, I didn't bring it. It's vacation time.
Right.
And I turned my cell phone off too, so I could just disconnect. And I think, we need to disconnect, we need to be still, we need to think, why am I here? Who made me? And I know that this verse really is foundational to what you're saying is Genesis 1:27. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him male and female. He created them. That's our
That's right.
foundation
Yes.
of where we came from.
Absolutely.
That's why I had to share that text earlier, because it's where it starts.
Absolutely. And if we will humble ourselves to the Lord's standard, if we will yield and say, we're valuable solely because we're made in your image, and that's it, we will truly stand in glory. We will find the value, the purpose, the significance that we're seeking if we will humble ourselves and stand on His standard alone as the one that defines us. The problem, as we've discussed some already, is when we don't understand this truth. And so instead of embracing the Lord's standard, we create our own standard, and we decide to redefine who and what is valuable.
So to make it practical, let's say you have a 17-year-old girl and her home is dysfunctional. She has all kinds of problems. She starts drinking. She meets a guy. She goes out. She gets pregnant. She realizes she's pregnant. And then she's tempted to have an abortion, which from what I've studied, and I'm sure you could fill in more details, that the majority of pregnancies are young girls,
18
right?
to 24 years old.
18 to 24. So this issue, how will that affect her if she's contemplating, I'm not ready to have a baby, and I'm not even married. My home is a mess. I'm trying to get into school, and now she's struggling with a new life inside of her. How does the value issue affect her if she just understands it or doesn't understand it?
Well, I think the value, my first thought was this: if she's 17 and still living at home, her mother, if she shares this with her mother, is going to have a huge impact on where she goes. Because if her mother understands the value, first of all, of herself,
Amen.
and then the value of that daughter, and then the value of that baby that's growing in her daughter, put aside the other prejudices and the other oh-nos and who's gonna think what,
Right.
But if she truly has an understanding of the value of life and where it stems from, there's going to come, it's like she will be there for her daughter, and she will be able to, in many, many cases, this is the truth, she'll give that daughter courage, that this is something they can face, that this is a precious little life. And even if she decides to give this precious little life to someone else to raise, to rear and provide for, that by never lose the value of this child, the unborn child. And by doing this, Steve, even if there's rocky road, rough times, it's a hard time, it's a difficult time, she is giving her daughter, her pregnant daughter, dignity.
Yes.
And that dignity will go with that daughter the rest of her life. There are so many women, continuous stories of a teenage daughter who is taken to an abortion clinic to get rid of a baby. Now, obviously, the baby has no value. The baby is an embarrassment or something in the way or an expense,
To the mother at that
Right.
time.
right,
Right.
and
You're not
but-
saying really,
No.
but just in her
right, this is the
thinking,
perception, exactly.
Okay.
But to that daughter,
it's just a thing, like the lady said to you, it's just a fuzzball, right?
right,
That's
just
the word.
something in the way that we can deal with as far as that mindset. But that daughter is going to live with dignity. Now, right away, it may be a trauma and it may be an upset, but 10 years from now, she won't have the shame of doing something, taking a life with value. That mother is giving her teenage daughter dignity. It's not the
So-
end of the world all because you're pregnant. It was unfortunate, but we can get past this. That's a prize.
So for you, when you told your story, how old were you when you first discovered that you were pregnant?
Oh, I was 25.
You were 25.
I was
okay,
older.
and you were engaged, and you were 6 months away from your wedding, or something like
Yes.
that. And then you messed up one time, and you realized you were pregnant, and you were thinking all those other thoughts, right, about the embarrassment and how can I tell my grandma and my family and my Christian friends, and what do I do, and plus the X-ray issue that you had an X-ray, and you were getting advice from physicians that you really should go through with an abortion. So if you would have understood the value issue more clearly, how would that have affected you at that time?
It would have made a huge, and first of all, I wouldn't have been as concerned about what this person will think or that person, because I don't get my self-value from them. My self-value comes from the Lord. So that right there, that was more so than the x-rays and the physicians, what they told me. You know, I could go through life saying, well, I had the abortion because the baby could have had these problems because of these x-rays. But when I'm honest with myself, that wasn't why I had it. I was concerned about all these other people, you know, what they would think.
You were thinking about how it was going to look.
And so that shows you my self-worth, my value. So much of it was based on other people's opinions. And unfortunately, people's silence on this issue has thrown women that do get into this kind of crisis right into that mindset. You know, we don't value each other. And if we don't value each other like, you know, adults here, you and me, Antionette, how are we going to grasp the value of a child that can't even be seen?
Right.
So
I got it. So
that's
you're saying that if we really understand God and His plan and why He made us, and that we're important to Him, whether we're grown-ups or whether we're just starting out, you know, inside the body, inside a woman's womb, that we are still, that the value issue, once we know the purpose of life, then that will affect our choices.
Absolutely.
And I mean, we need to understand that so that we don't get ourselves into those situations in the first place. Mm-hmm. And we'll deal with that
That's
more
right.
later on in other programs. But it's a spiral, isn't it? We just get it. We're caught. We're in a rut. We're in a chaotic situation. And just the simplest thing to do is just make it all better so that we can not deal with this anymore. But the reality is, it doesn't work. Like you've told us your story, the guilt is there, and it's very traumatic. Mm-hmm. So now we're coming back to the foundation issue that will hopefully help people to realize that if I'm valuable, you're valuable, and then what's inside me, or not me because I'm a guy, but you know, a woman would think that what's inside of a woman is something precious in the sight of the Lord, and He has created this person.
That she too is precious. I really think the idea that we're not valuable and not understanding our value, it is rampant among thousands upon thousands, millions of people who don't understand because we've rejected the image of the Lord as defining our value. And we see that happening. I love Dianne's illustration because it addresses it from both aspects, from the woman herself, but also of the unborn child. And are we willing to be honest with ourselves about when that value really does begin? Because I think a lot of people would hear this and say, well, of course, human beings are valuable. But the question is, when does it begin? Does that value begin at the very beginning when the Lord put His stamp on us? Are we willing to be honest about the fact that if it doesn't begin at our beginning, what are the consequences of that? Does that mean that, as we've discussed already, our value then will become based on what we do, what we achieve, what we possess? It's a mindset that from the very beginning, you're valuable because you're made in the image of the Lord, and it defines you for the rest of your life.
Right. So instead of just thinking, this person, what are they going to say? My job, am I ready for this? I'm not married, and all these other thoughts, we start thinking instead of this way, we're thinking that way. Mm-hmm. And who am I, even though I've messed up? And who is this now that's inside, that's growing? And so we have a whole different paradigm shift. It reminds me of a Bible verse that says, in His light shall we see light. That we just don't know, we don't get it, right? We just don't get it until we start thinking and reading and realizing, wow, God, I'm here because You made me, and I'm here for a reason. And if I have a new life inside me, that's part of Your plan, right? Isn't that it? That's the idea, that the new life inside me is because of God, and He has a plan.
He is the Creator, absolutely.
For that new life.
Absolutely. And will we as believers be willing to be honest enough with ourselves to say, we are made in the image of the Lord, and that defines our value, and to not not look for other avenues that define our value because we're not willing to be honest about this issue. That we would truly embrace the value and significance of the unborn, of the woman, as a complete package, because the Lord is creator of them both.
Wow, that's powerful. And it's in God's Word. Well, we have a little bit of time. Any other quick thoughts before I point to another Bible verse? We've got about 2 minutes.
Well, I do think if we reject the image of the Lord, for us to understand that we really are striking down the standard that defines us. Again, we've said that over and over, the image of the Lord is the standard. But if we choose to reject that, as I've done, as Dianne has done, I think as so many people have done when we've wandered away from the Lord, as saying, you are the standard that defines me. If we reject that, who then becomes the standard? We become the standard. Man does. The problem is the value then that was once absolute, it becomes unattainable because we're grasping and we're striving and we're never rested and settled in the fact that the Lord and the Lord alone defines our value.
And then we don't make decisions based on His will.
Absolutely.
For our lives, we get all messed up. I want to share a Bible verse that's very powerful. It's in the book of Jeremiah, chapter 1, verse 4 and 5. It says, "Then the word of the Lord came to me, and it said, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you." And this doesn't just apply to Jeremiah, it applies to you. Before you were formed, God knew you. He formed you in the womb. He has a plan for you. He created you. And His plan is beyond anything that we can ever understand without looking to Him. He wants, we're made in His image. He wants to teach us how to reveal that image, how to show His love, His grace, and His compassion to others around us, and to realize that not only did He create us, but He sent His own Son. He sent His own Son to give His life for us, and that shows us how important we are to Him. And He wants you to know that love for the rest of your life and forever.
Dianne Wagner and Antionette Duck share powerful, life-changing information in this 13-part series, The Abortion Controversy. To order this 6.5-hour DVD set for only $34.95, call 1-800-782-4253. That's 1-800-782-4253. Or you can write to White Horse Media, P.O. Box 1139, Newport, Washington 99156, or order online at whitehorsemedia.com. Steve Wohlberg's latest pocketbook, Hidden Holocaust, is a must-read for anyone contemplating an abortion or who has had one. While Steve shares the biblical position on this controversial subject, he also presents a message of hope and healing. To get your free copy of the pocketbook, Hidden Holocaust, just call the toll-free number on the screen and order your copy today, or write to White Horse Media, P.O. Box 1139, Newport, Washington 99156. If you've been blessed by today's program and would like to help White Horse Media with your financial support, you can call our toll-free number listed on the screen or donate online at whitehorsemedia.com.